So now the time has moved forward, meaning the daylight hours are going to be a little bit longer for us. Some people associate time moving forward with the beginning of spring, and that's not always the case. Every now and then, scientifically, those two things may or may not line up, right? But they don't always, that doesn't, there's this essential connection that when time moves forward, it must be springtime. And that's not always the case. So, in this year, right, time moved forward on the 10th of March. And typically, the alignment of the earth, where it is in its rotation around the sun, the equinox, the spring equinox, is the time of the year where the earth is in a specific position where the equator, the northern and southern hemisphere are, even though the earth is tilted, right, facing that sun, that they are receiving almost equal amount of day and nighttime hours, right? So that's why we see, I don't know why it is that we do it in the U.S. Not every continent or country or even state in the United States moves time forward, right? There are some states that don't change time, but most people, or a lot of people, associate with the time moving forward it being that time of the year that it's spring, and that's not the case. So the 10th of 2024, time went forward, but the spring equinox was March 19th, so we are now 9 days past time moving forward. But the spring equinox is a semblance in science, right? Scientifically, it's a semblance of the earth in its orbit around the sun being in a position where the northern and southern hemisphere are receiving nearly equal amounts of direct sunlight. When I say nearly equal, if it's not 12 and 12, it's like 11 hours and 47 minutes, and the other one, right, is 11 hours and 23, no, I'm overdoing that, 13 minutes. Sorry, I was quick math in there. But anyway, that's beside the point. But so that's when the equinox is a semblance of that the sun rays, the northern and southern hemisphere, both halves of the earth, right? Both northern and southern hemisphere are receiving equal amounts of sunlight. So we usually associate the equinox with that, and not that the time moving forward. They are of no relation. But sometimes we in society, and some of us don't know any better or have connected those two things. So with that being said, I just want to let you know that we are now officially in spring season, right? It is now officially spring. It may not feel like it outside wherever you may be in the world, but we are officially now in spring we've started the spring equinox, where the daylight and nighttime hours are nearly equal to each other. So you'll see nearly 12 hours of day and nearly 12 hours of nighttime. However that may fall depending on your time jump zone. But yes, no matter where you are, you should see very closely close numbers in daylight and nighttime hours. With that being said, so a little bit more on that in terms of if you're a teacher in the classroom, you can probably expect, well, we already knew that the change in time usually kind of changed a little bit with our students as well. Like some of them a little tired, a little sluggish, not really motivated, right? Now that we're getting a little bit more of daylight hours, right? That spring forward, the students are now about to get restless. We know spring, if you're in the classroom, is associated with testing season, right? It is that time of the year where the students, it's time for testing, state testing, high stakes testing. Parents, everyone else in the world, if you didn't know, usually right after spring break, right? Very close. Some of us go to spring break earlier. Some of us go to spring break later, no matter where it is, but teachers know and we associate, and parents, you should know that it is now high stakes testing time. And if it's not already started in your school, it's coming up real quick on these students. And so a couple of things that you can prepare yourself for is that your students are going to come home and be extremely fatigued, or they're going to come home and just want to be outside because they've been inside a classroom all day long testing, sometimes on the computer. I think now that we're in 2024, I'm pretty sure, if not all, because I don't live in all states and I'm not sure, but I would wage in saying 90% of testing is now digital. So they are staring at their computer screens for a great portion of their school day. This is not your teachers choosing just to put your kids in front of the screen and make them do all these testing. These are your high stakes tests that are handed down from the districts and the higher ups, that teachers don't get a say-so in what it is that these students are doing. So be mindful, right? When there's not a lot of teaching time that's happening during state testing, mandated testing, by the way. Mandated meaning that we don't get a choice. We have to distribute the test. We have to set aside time for the test. And that time is taken away from our content that we are supposed to teach. Mind you, there is still very many days of school remaining, right? Some of us don't get out till late May. Some of us don't get out till mid to late June. And we are testing, or about to start testing, in April. As soon as spring break hits, or as soon after, or just soon before, state testing starts. So sometimes our students and your children associate that testing is about to start, and when testing is over, about 3, sometimes it's 4 weeks in some school. I don't know about other teacher school, but in my school, it was weeks, right? So we had, I'm middle school, 8th grade test in science. I'm a science teacher. Well, I was a math teacher now, but science tested first, right? Early on, we tested the 8th graders test for science, high stakes science test. And then the following week, they start their MAPS testing. If I'm flip-flopping, every state calls it something different, but it's MAPS testing. MAPS is for reading and math. And in some states, it's also science. So you got those 3 tests, and they try to help the kids out by breaking that up into 2 days. But it could vary, and some of your kids are trying to finish it in 1 day because they don't want to do it. But regardless, if your student has finished in 1 day their math test, their math MAPS test, that doesn't mean that it's time to move on for the teacher and the rest of the students. So even though your students, and I suggest, or I encourage you to tell your students to slow down on these tests, not because you want them to get the best score, right? This video isn't about getting the best score. It's just more so about understanding that regardless if your student finishes testing on the first day or not, the rest of the school is still testing, which means your student's going to be bored. And we know sometimes boredom in schools where they can't do what they want to do might cause disruptions for others, disruptions for the teachers, disruptions that may lead to phone calls to parents to let you know that there's an issue today at school because your student is bored because they finished their test early. Again, this is nothing to do with whether your kid should focus on taking the test and getting the best score and the best and the highest. That's not what this video is about. It's more informational to let you know what's going on in these schools during this time of the year. There's a lot of testing going on, and your students are going to be tested out after the first week. I'm here to tell you that it's not over after the first week. After MAPS, it's it came in my brain really quickly and then it left. I have to stop or pause the video or insert it when I insert it somewhere up here because I can't think of the test at this moment. But anyway, so there's a lot of testing going on in the schools, and mostly in the morning. I very seriously doubt there's testing going on in the afternoon. That's usually the downward slope of students' attention span, or, they're kind of over it after lunch. And yet we still, we're still pushing onward with our individualized content. But For testing, they try to do testing first thing in the morning. Some things you can do to help to try to make the day better for your students. I don't know what every individual school or district or school area does, but making sure that they get a good night's sleep, right? So they're not super tired and fatigued sitting in front of that computer. Packing them some water. I know they're allowed to get up and go to get water during the test. We don't deny them the water or the bathroom. That's not allowed, right? They're allowed to go, but it does. There's some, guidelines for how we have to let the kids go to the bathroom. There was at my school, maybe in other schools they do it differently, but I'm pretty sure they're all high stakes testing. There's all these big issues around cheating and, all of that good jazz to ensure that the tests are valid and that the students are, making the best effort. So lots of different rules surrounding that, and the validity and the reliability of the test that the teachers submitted. Students are still, after they're done testing, they have to close their Chromebook, or they have to close or shut off the digital thing that they're on, and then they have to sit and read a book. They're not even allowed to do other things. They can't take out other work from other classes to get caught up on. There's rules and regulations around all of that stuff. What else can I inform you about on what's happening in these schools and in these classrooms during testing season, which is associated with spring season for us teachers that are in this classroom. So yeah, maybe making sure your kid has a snack. I know that, they're not supposed to have snacks, but I don't think every teacher denies their student to be able to take a snack out or a mint or something that helps them to focus a little bit while they're testing and not become super fatigued staring at the screen. Yeah, it's a lot. And us teachers, we can't teach after they're done testing. Again, if your student, if it's a 80 minute test or a 60-minute test and they only get 45 minutes or however the timing works, different tests have different timing. Sometimes the teachers try to break it up into two parts where they'll test for 30 minutes and do the other 15 or 20 minutes the next day. It's not ideal. They kind of want it all to happen one day. Sometimes they allot the whole morning for testing. Some students are fast test takers. Some students are I don't care test takers. Some students are very focused test takers. And some students take their time with tests. None of them is wrong or right. It's just individually per that student. And there's a lot of other working parts around the students taking tests. It's the being quiet for the 2-3 hours that are allotted for testing. Your student has to sit in a chair and be quiet while the rest of his or her or them or their classmates are still testing. There's no, it's reading. I think the only thing they're allowed to do is maybe read a book in their own book, bringing a book. Sometimes they're allowed to draw. They're not allowed to take the paper out of the room if they do draw. Yeah, it's a long day for both teachers and students. And so if you weren't aware, I guess this video is help bring a little bit more awareness so that not only are you associating that spring is now among us, but spring for schools and teachers in classrooms is associated with testing season. Sorry, I'm starting to lose my train of thought, probably from staring at this screen for as long as I've been staring at this screen and this bright light in my eyes. Hence why I usually wear my glasses, because the bright light does something to my eyesight. So yeah, I just want to get on here, give you a few tips, let you know what's happening. Testing season is amongst us. Was that a game? I think that's a game these kids play. My thinking's all over the place. Anyway, it's spring break for some of us. And spring break is over for others of us. But we do know what's creeping upon us is testing. It's here. Isn't it our favorite time of the year, teachers? That was sarcasm. No, it's not our favorite time of the year. Let me go back to my point I was trying to make, that although it's testing season, right? It's like April. April is like testing season. School still has to go on in May, and some of us in June. And so here's what maybe you're not aware of, some of you who are not in the classroom, is that after testing, guess who's checked out of school? No. It's not the adults. Not the adults, because, that's my job. I have to stay checked into school. But guess who is checked out of school? Because they feel like we've tested. We're done, right? You've taught us everything we need to know. We took the test that you told us to take and sat through hours and boring and all kinds of. Guess who's checked out of school? Are you thinking what I'm thinking? The kids. The kids, after testing, are checked out. And guess what? We still have to teach. We still have to keep them motivated and encouraged and make them continue to do work after they know and we know that they've taken the test that the district and the higher ups wanted them to take to do well on since the beginning of the year. How is it that these people who have these jobs, I think I was supposed to turn the camera this way. It's too late, but these people who have these jobs why you get, it doesn't make sense. And I don't know how you people keep your jobs, because it doesn't make sense. But, I guess for them, they still see students that do really well on tests, and that's fine. I'm not, again, this video isn't about whether your student is or is not a good test taker. They do well or they don't do well on tests. And I'm a teacher, and I don't care. I don't care. When I say I don't care, I don't say that mean or rudely, that I don't care about your kid. I'm saying that we place so much emphasis on high stakes testing that that's not the reason I became a teacher. I became a teacher for different reasons. And so whether your student performs on that test the way that they're supposed to, it's not that I don't care that they didn't perform well. It just doesn't define who your student has been throughout the year for me. That's what I mean when I say I don't care. Let me correct myself. I do care. I care about your student. I don't care whether the test tells them that they are where they should or shouldn't be. That's not my main concern. Not in this video, and not as a teacher either, because then that stressor is placed on the students, and most of the time it doesn't do what it's supposed to do by placing that stressor on that student. They don't do what they're supposed to do because they're too concerned about whether or not they did well on a state test or not, whether that test is going to tell them everything about themselves. And the test doesn't tell them who they are as a student, or the growth that they had throughout the year, or what growth they did or didn't have, right? That test is testing a universal thing, right? They think everyone falls on that universal line, and everyone does not fall on that universal line. But that's what that test is testing. So your kid may not have been great at long division. I'm just using something from probably elementary. And again, I'm a middle school teacher, but long division. They started off the year not knowing how to do it. And now in April or May, they're masters of long division. But the high stake testing, the test that they're taking, isn't about long division. Does that mean that your student wasn't successful? No, that means your student grew tremendously from the beginning of the school year to the end of the school year. But that universal test is testing what it wants to test. Whether it says your kid grew or not, it's not my main concern. So I said all that to say that after testing, the students are really checked out. And yet it's our job as teachers to continue to keep them engaged and focused and wanting to continue to learn the content after they've already tested for the content. And that's a hard task to do. And they come to school unmotivated. Some of them already came to school unmotivated, but especially after testing, the remaining of the school year, yeah, it's an uphill battle. And so I'm just here to share some of that knowledge with you if you didn't know. And my video may have been all over the place trying to explain that to you. And I apologize for that, because I had one initial thought of sharing some ideas with you as a teacher from the classroom, but then that led into all these other thoughts. And I felt like they were important to say, and I wanted to say them, and I did say them. And I'm happy about that. And again, I didn't even figure out that I was supposed to flip my video until the end. So let's be mindful. If you're on spring break, I hope you have a wonderful spring break. Teachers, parents, kids, enjoy the time off. We all need it, okay? We all need it. Enjoy. Whether you're back from spring break, I hope you enjoyed your spring break. And now that you're back, you're prepping the kids for testing that I know is coming up. I don't care where you are in the United States of America, it is nearly testing season. If you haven't already started to prepare for it, it is coming up. Because May, school gets out. And so they like to try to be done at least a month before the school gets out. Some schools. You know what? Now that I'm thinking about it, I've worked at quite a few districts over my teaching career. And I've learned that, some districts are terrible at planning testing toward the end of the school year. And some districts are actually very smart about planning testing. They give the teachers you know what? My first district, they actually didn't plan state testing, high stakes testing until May, which is actually very smart. Gives the teacher a little bit more time to get through the rest or get through more of the content. So at least the students have been exposed to the content that we probably haven't finished teaching yet. So I've been in districts where I did start testing in May, which I think is amazing. You just have to be done really quickly, because I think the testing window for testing ends like mid-May, like the 10th or the 20th, depending on when schools get out. But I've been in those districts. Actually, that was great. I think I liked it that way. And then I've been in districts where they start testing at the end of March. And we still have school till May, till Memorial Day, which is the last week of May. And they plan testing starting in March and going all the way into April. And then you still have to teach a whole nother month after that, more content. And you have to keep these kids engaged and wanting to learn even after the testing. So I don't know whether your testing is done right on time or it's done a little bit too early. I know it's testing season coming up here soon. We're at it's March, it's mid-March. And so again, my video might not be as organized in my thinking as it should be. And I should have planned. I did. I wrote myself little notes on things that I should talk about. And I covered all of them. I didn't cover them in order, but I did cover my little notes here. I did cover the topics that I want. They just weren't very organized. So yeah, there's that. But yeah, happy testing season. Happy spring. And I'll see you in the next video.